Welcome to Employee Module Number 2, Bullying in the Workplace. In this course, you will learn 5 different objectives: defining what bullying is, understanding the difference between direct and indirect bullying, assessing your own actions to be intimidating, creating cultures that eliminate workplace bullying, and reporting and documenting your concerns. Bullying is a term and action that has grown beyond school playgrounds and into a variety of places in our daily lives. Nowhere is bullying more damaging to an employee than right here at the workplace, where the opportunity to leave or escape the conduct may not be possible. This training will help us identify bullying behavior and even help us assess our own behavior to determine if what we are doing could be damaging or intimidating to our work environment and fellow employees. We will learn how bullying impacts all of us and can even lead to violence. We will also examine methods to eliminate bullying behaviors by creating a culture that guarantees a safer work environment. In order to recognize bullying, we must first define what bullying is. OSHA defines it as threats or other conduct that in any way create a hostile environment, impair operations, or frighten, alarm, or inhibit others. Verbal intimidation may include making false statements that are malicious, disparaging, derogatory, disrespectful, abusive, or rude. Others have defined it as a display of aggressive or unbalanced power aimed at intimidation that is repetitive or has a chance to become repetitive. However it is officially defined, there may have been a time in your life in which you have felt bullied. You may be suffering from bullying behavior right now, or possibly have, or are bullying someone else. In any case, bullying is not acceptable or to be tolerated in any work environment. Many of us take our work home with us, and not only through emotions and feelings of the workday, but also by checking our email, phones, and social media if used in relation to work. These are also areas where people may be prone to bullying behavior. Unlike some old definitions and understandings of bullying, a person does not have to be physically present to be intimidated or create a sense of concern to their victim. When one is faced with a constant barrage of intimidation, it could lead to serious risk such as depression, anxiety, violence, and even suicide. No matter how we define bullying, it is the goal of this training to help us all understand that bullying behavior is dangerous and has serious consequences for those involved. We often think of bullying behavior as someone making direct threats to our face or standing over us yelling at us and calling us names. Bullying doesn't have to be outright name calling or even right over us. Bullying can be a number of unwanted behaviors that make someone else feel intimidated or embarrassed in the workplace. We often can recognize these behaviors by the reactions of others or even ourselves. If the behavior causes a person to become scared, disengaged, or silent in uncertainty, they may feel bullied because they are being intimidated. This is not only an impact on the person, but also to the productivity and overall operations at your work. Whenever the behaviors are made in our presence, it is a form of direct bullying. Direct bullying can also be in a form of pranks or teasing. Pranks at the workplace can lead to unintended consequences if the joke goes too far or is intended to be more than just some isolated workplace humor. When a person becomes subjected to a pattern of pranks and teasing, it is just another form of workplace bullying. Sometimes, a victim of repeated pranks may not respond back or even act like it's okay, which may cause the perpetrator to continue teasing or targeting the victim. The acts of continual teasing and pranks against a targeted coworker usually has underlying intimidation factors and should be considered a direct form of bullying behavior. It is important that you do not go along with these type of behaviors and talk to both the offender and the victim to encourage it to stop. Remember that some form of bullying is designed to create or maintain an unbalance of power. This is common in a competitive workplace and high-stress environments. While some companies will reward meeting deadlines and benchmarks, a competitive environment can also become unhealthy if behaviors are allowed to intimidate and create an unbalance of power. This can come in the form of someone trying to prove that they are better than someone else or keep others from performing at their best. Perhaps a key promotion is on the line, or some form of company reward is at stake. A person may use intimidation to get their workplace competitor to make mistakes, lose productivity, or even quit. While competition may be a good thing, and work rewards are something that can add some fun and spikes to the workplace, when some people use intimidation to achieve it, it's just another form of bullying. Other forms of direct bullying are more typical and can include actions as well as words. Perhaps a person uses an intimidating stare, always talks over or makes negative remarks about your ideas, uses a lot of profanity aimed at you, and raises their voice to you. These are all attempts to keep you down or excluded. Many bullying behaviors are designed to intimidate the victim and attack their emotions and self-confidence. In rare cases, bullying may rise to physical threats or harm. Therefore, if anyone ever makes a threat to harm you or another person, or speaks of harming you or another person, it must be reported immediately. Bullying can also be indirect. Indirect bullying is when the acts of intimidation or power occur when not face to face. A workplace bully may use others to influence a person to feel weaker or less valued as a fellow employee. Perhaps they spread harmful rumors about them or get others to join them in teasing the employee even when the main culprit is not around. Victims of bullying may feel like they are being ganged up on, and a whole new realm of intimidation may persist. Indirect bullying may also include overt acts to exclude someone from meetings, social gatherings, and group activities. These actions are especially true when a form of competitiveness is perceived by the bully against their intended victim. The bully may feel that they need to rally others to their side or cause, and in doing so, they bring other coworkers to their intimidating acts. Attempts to isolate a person is a form of bullying and needs to be recognized as such. Indirect bullying can also happen electronically. While we may have all sent an email that was misinterpreted, the repeated act of sending an email, voicemail, or any electronic message or social media post with intimidating tones is indirect bullying. These forms of indirect bullying also make it difficult for the victim to escape the feeling of a bullying environment, as they may receive these messages when they are away from work or at home. Any repeated electronic message or post from a coworker that contains profanity, intimidation, harassment, inappropriate words or pictures should first be directly returned with a professional and short message to stop. If the actions continue, if your workplace policy requires an immediate report, or if the message includes threats to harm, forward the message to a supervisor immediately. If these actions come from a supervisor or a manager, you should follow your workplace chain of command to determine who they should be reported to next. Keep in mind that constructive criticism, differences of opinions, and even personality conflicts are part of any workplace culture and do not mean that it's an act of bullying. Managers and department leads may also provide comments and feedback about your performance that is intended to seek a change in work habits or production. While manager styles, language, and deliveries may vary, constructive criticism or general work reviews are not typical bullying behaviors, even when they contain information that you may not like hearing. A good way to tell the difference if the communications are statements or communications that are sent on official company letterhead, through company email, or through official review or meeting forms, are professional and not personal in nature, contain no derogatory or abusive or profane language, cite policy issues, rules, or violations, contain actions of discipline, are isolated or specific to work issues alone, or they offer a means of remedy or improvement. Remember, managers and bosses have a job to do. Just because they may say something to you that you may not want to hear or express concerns of performance, it is not typical bullying behavior. The key to bullying is an attempt to intimidate or create that imbalance of power that is repeated and usually has no other purpose that is beneficial in the work environment. By now, you may be thinking, maybe some of my own actions have been a form of bullying. Perhaps you took a prank too far, or maybe your tone or actions with a coworker were repeatedly unprofessional. It's okay to realize now that maybe even you have been intimidating to another person. What is important now, though, is that we all know how these actions hurt others and make a collective effort to keep our workplace bully free. Let's face it, some of us may work with people we particularly don't care for. We may not like their personality, quirks, or there is just something about them. Personality differences can easily lead to bullying behavior, or worse yet, a competition to see who can be the bigger bully. When working with someone you don't particularly care for, remember, you are there to serve your employer and your patrons, and that should be your focus. Concentrate on your own duties and abilities to be the best it can be and avoid getting caught up in personal conflict. Practice calming techniques and even try giving the person a fresh start. Perhaps invite the person to lunch or coffee to get to know them better, and even try talking through your differences away from the workplace setting. Who knows? You may even develop a renewed friendship and appreciation for the person. If all else fails, it's important to know that you remain the ultimate professional and be pleasant, as you need to control your own actions. What about those jokes and teasing I mentioned before? Are you thinking back now and saying to yourself, boy, we sure played a lot of jokes on so and so. I hope they know that we were only teasing and didn't mean any harm. Workplace humor is often a good escape from the mundane to the hectic, and by no means does this training want to see a positive work environment with some humor stop. Yet, if your jokes and teasing are always pointed in the direction of a certain person or a specific group at work, then that behavior does need to stop. Plus, you open yourself up for potential discipline or even lawsuits if a joke goes too far and ends up hurting someone or harassing someone. It's a good idea to ask yourself if your attempt at humor has any potential to harm or embarrass someone. If it does, it has no place in the workplace. And what about those isolating tactics? Do you go along with excluding someone from a group, project, social event, or communications at work? Even if you are not the organizer, your actions to participate in the known exclusion are by default indirect bullying. Plus, you wouldn't like it too much if you were the target of isolating behaviors. When you see isolating behaviors happen at work, it's important to do two things. First, ask yourself who or why is coordinating these isolation events. You may find that the person who is the ringleader, to keep someone out of the loop, is using you as a pawn in the game of bullying. Second, take proactive steps to include the person in group events and communications. You may be surprised at the resources and appreciation of the person that they may bring to the group. You may also see unintended rewards such as higher overall production, patron satisfaction, and management recognition for working better as a total team. In assessing our own behaviors and actions, we now know what is expected of our own conduct and behaviors at work if there were any uncertainties before. Moving forward, your employer now expects you to work to a more positive and inclusive work environment and help create a culture of a bully-free workplace. In our next segment, we will talk about what we can do to accomplish that. You may be thinking that it's the management's job to create a bully-free workplace, when in fact, it's a team effort. There are many things you can do to keep bullying out of the workplace. First and foremost is use your voice and stand up for yourself and others. Remember, bullies are there to intimidate. If you show you will not tolerate their behavior or be intimidated by it, you take away the bully's perceived power over you. To do this, be professional and be frank. Let them know you do not appreciate their behavior and want it to stop. If your direct approach isn't working, contact a supervisor. You may also need to speak up if others are being bullied. First, talk with the victim and encourage them to speak up for themselves. Follow that up by talking to the offender and letting them know that what you are witnessing is bullying behavior
and they need to stop. Remember, getting rid or keeping bullying out of a workplace takes a certain culture, so be a proactive part of that culture. Okay, what if you realize now that maybe you were a bully or are engaged in some direct or indirect bullying behavior? It all starts with two simple words: I'm sorry. If you know now that what you have done was intimidating or embarrassing or threatening to a coworker, make that all important apology, admit what you've done was wrong. Don't send an email either. Go face to face with that person. Shake their hand, look them in the eye, and tell them you are sorry. For that person, a huge weight may be lifted off their shoulders by your apology and renewed commitment that your behavior is going to change. You should also feel better about yourself, knowing that you have changed your behavior for the better, and you will help the person feel more comfortable around you. In any effort to make a workplace bully free takes courage. It takes courage to speak up for yourself, for others, and also to apologize. It may also take courage to report incidents of bullying to management and follow through on them. In our final segment, we will look at why and when we may need to document bullying behaviors and prepare you should you need to report it. Most instances of bullying can be dealt with through awareness and communications between those directly involved. However, there are times when you may be asked to document what you saw or heard when bullying incident arises. This might cause a lot of anxiety for you and others in the workplace. For one, many people will naturally fear retaliation if they have to officially report someone for doing something wrong. Second, employees may fear that managers will blame the victims of witnesses for taking action against the bully, which will create even more tension at work. These are things that often cause many to suffer in silence and allow the bullying behavior to perpetuate and get out of control. One thing we do know is that bullying behavior has a breaking point, and many cases of workplace violence occur when one reaches that breaking point. If you have attempted to personally communicate with the bully and their behavior has not changed or worsens, you must report their behaviors to management. Consider this: you are watching this training right now because this is an issue your managers care about and are being proactive against. Your managers are also being trained on not only these very same objectives, but what is expected of them should bullying behavior is brought to their attention. You need to trust that your employer will do what is right to stop the behavior and do their part in creating that bully free culture. Could a bully be disciplined, fired, or even criminally charged? The answer to all three is yes. That should also be a wake up call to anyone being trained that bullying behaviors are indeed serious and lead to serious consequences for those involved. If you are a witness or victim of bullying, you need to report the actions of the bullying to management if it does not stop. You may be asked to write out a statement. Do not fear in doing so, as you are not in the wrong. In order to protect the integrity of your employer, their policies, and the manager's review and decision, a report or statement may be asked of you. This goes back to our talk about courage. You need to stand up for yourself or others and complete the report. This takes a lot of courage from you, and it's important to remember that this is not your fault, but the fault of the person who is bullying and wouldn't stop or went too far. It is also important to consider that any action against the bully is also intended to prevent the possibility of a workplace violent incident. In conclusion, this training has taught you how to define bullying, how to recognize the difference between direct and indirect bullying, how to assess your own actions and be more aware of your actions to coworkers, and how to create a total culture of a bully free environment and having the courage to report repeated and serious incidents. Together, your management team and you stand together to make sure your workplace is free of threats, intimidation, embarrassment, and isolation. You are all working together to a happier and safer place to work, one that respects and values every employee and functions as an efficient workplace as possible. A bully free culture is not only possible, but expected, and it takes everyone to make it happen.